Howdy everybody. If anything, we're going to talk about a game, or maybe not a game, maybe let's just say a future concept in the making. If anything, well, technically it is a game, like the story is about like a game, but anywho, if you've seen this thumbnail, maybe you'll get like a visual representation and then you'd be like, this looks interesting. But if anything, like the way that I can probably explain this, what this future concept will be, if you've seen Hunger Games, if you've seen the Gerard Butler movie called Gamer, if you've seen Ready Player One, if you've seen an anime called Sword Art Online, if you've seen Battle Royale, that movie, this is kind of like a slice and dice of all those things mixed together. And the reason why I'm bringing this to you today is just because I just haven't seen something like this yet out there. And like ideally, we live in a world where video games are more and more important in society today. Even having VR helping patients with coping with being under pain from certain procedures done. So if anything, I think with this game it would be a perfect representation of how we've run out of TV shows to put on, we've run out of movies to put on. We live in a world where everybody is just clamoring for the new exciting game to come out, and if anything, there has to be a special kind of people that get selected to put on this big video game reality show, just because it's not really reality. It's like, basically imagine if you were like, I'll lay out the story. If anything, you get a group of people that for somehow or another they won these contests, or were just contracted by this gaming company to be a part of their seasoned show. And if anything, there is probably one character that had maybe this reality show has gone on for 1 season or 2 seasons or 3 seasons or something like that, and there is a guy that maybe won the last season or has just been fairly dominant for some reason as this show has gone on. Maybe he wasn't in the first season, but maybe he was in the second season. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure of how that should be written in. I think maybe he'll be in the second season and he was dominant through the second season, and then he was in the third season and dominant, and now there's the fourth season, and now you get these people that are the contest winners, and they're just like, oh my god, I can't believe we're on the show. I love this show since it first started, and like, I can't believe we're going to be able to meet this guy who I had a mad crush on, or maybe I thought he was cool or whatever, and maybe he'll be like this great guy that we have great times with outside the show or something like that. And if anything, they're going to be very disappointed because they're thinking they're going to get this great thing out of this, and they won't, because if anything, we're going to have these people all win these contests and they're all giddy and they're like, yay, I won, yay. And so they get put into this room and they have all these contracts that they need to sign, and for each one of these people, they all have contracts that aren't written in their language, and they don't understand what they're signing, and they're just like, well, I want to be on the show. I like the show. I think everybody who did this show went on to bigger and better things, and maybe one of the people is like a very popular like YouTuber that he got put onto the show. Like, he mostly vlogs and doesn't really play video games very much, but he just went on the show just because like, hey, this would be cool, and people voted me in to be into this, because the game creator, the game people will take that into account. But if anything, anyways, all these papers and such are in a language they don't understand, and they just all like convince themselves that it's like, well, this is a we just like, they rationalize that like, we have to do this, we have to sign, like what kind of bad could happen. We've seen the show, we know what happens. They rationalize it. But anything, maybe one of these people are friends with one another, and because they have been in gaming competitions for years and both of them made it, and they both end up on the show together, ipso facto. If anything, these people are like, hey, are we going to meet the guy who won last season? Are we going to be able to like talk to him before we like get into the game? And they're just like, it's like, no, like if anything, he's still he'll meet you when the game starts. And they're just like, prima donna, like I guess he feels he's too good for us, and so they sign these contracts, and they get into their gear, and they get into this really small, maybe like tube like housing of sorts, and they're just like, okay, it's like just so you know, you're gonna get dropped into a safe zone. Then you'll have X amount of time, and that is where you'll meet the champion, the guy who's been champion. If anything, some of you will be dropped in this location, and some of you will be dropped in that location. If anything, you guys are going to be a team for a certain time and whatever, and so they get dropped into these safe zones, and they just see this, oh my god, they ooh and ah, because it's just like the game looks even better than what they could have expected. Like if anything, they're just like, oh my god, this looks so real and everything like that. They're just like, I can't believe this, blah blah blah. And so the one team that is with the team with the champion. They are just like, they're going to like, and the first thing he says is like, don't worry whatever you say here. Like cameras aren't on you until you hit when you go past the safe zone. But if anything, this is a one-time safe zone. If you try to come back here, you won't be able to get back in the safe zone. So just be leery. And they're like going 100 miles a minute, and they're just like, oh my god, you were so great in this season, and you, like, I can't believe you killed this guy. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And he's just completely standoffish, and like, they're just like, prima donna much? And he's just like, you don't understand what you're getting into. And they're just kind of like, what? It's like, he's like, I am going to explain to you in detail how this game really works. And if anything, now I'm going to talk about how like the main the main thing that puts this whole thing together and why it can be a huge thing, where even in a team it could be something big. If anything, he's gonna go over. He's like, okay, if you think that you're gonna be able to, if you like to try not to make any friends here, because if anything, you will eventually at some point go for their throats. So if anything, use the people for the strategies that they have or whatever, but eventually, because there's going to be this, there's going to be like sponsorship, there's going to be people betting and stuff for this whole game. So like, if anything, you might get very tempted to screw over your teammates just to get some kind of sponsorship, just to get some better armor or something, or to get you to be able to do things better throughout the game. So, and they're just like, well, yeah, I think we've seen some seasons before where it's just like, yeah, but also realize that if you do not win, or if you make it further onto the game, don't make friends, because the people that you kill, that lose, if you have friends with you, you will never see them again. And they're just like, say what? It's like, yeah, like this, the game company has the people that lose. After I found out, while this show was being put together, that they were actually really killing these people after these seasons were over to keep their money. And this is more cutthroat than you realize. And people are just gonna like, say what? And it's gonna be like, yeah. If anything, this video game life, if you win, is going to be your life. That's why when this season started, you did not see me, because I am stuck in here. And the reason why I chose to be in this game is because I am the creator of the game. And I realized after this first season was done that they were actually really killing off people. And I got so grief-stricken and so this and so that I was under gag orders to not say anything. And I was so guilt-ridden and everything that I put myself into the game to have one less person be killed in this experiment, in this gaming experience. But I realized that I hoped that someone would just end me, and because I was so guilt and grief stricken about this whole process, I was hoping someone would just end me. That it just didn't happen. If anything, I wrote the demos and rough drafts of everything that you see here, and I know ins and outs and everything like that. So if you think that you are just going to walk over me, and you would be sorely mistaken. If anything, I will give you a fair shot, but you are going to have to definitely come at me from a long ways away. But if anything, because if anything, there is going to be so many cutthroat times that people are going to probably decide to sabotage their own team or sabotage somebody to to get a better way through the game. And if anything, eventually these people, it'll be kind of like the Truman Show, where it's a 24-hour show, but they'll give them 5 hours to sleep. And some people might be so excited and whatever that they won't be able to sleep. So they just keep on chugging along, which is great because it'll give the game people, the game developers or whatever, some more footage to use for their show, because this is a reality show. But the thing about it is, like, the outside world doesn't know really what is real, what is fake, what is whatever. So it's even kind of like the movie, the Kellen Lutz film Arena, that people think, oh, it's all scripted and all, it's this and that, but really, like, people are really dying. But anyways, the guy will explain to these people that it's like, well, popularity will help you the most in this game. So if your avatar is a woman, try to have as much cleavage showing as possible. Try to really, in some way, look the most cool or creative as you possibly can. If anything, I've gained so much popularity just because I've been on here for very long. So if anything, they're going to have, on each one of these characters, they're going to have like sponsorship in some kind of way, maybe patches or some kind of, where it's kind of like sports, how they have the Nike swoosh somewhere on their uniforms and stuff like. It's going to be just like that. So if anything, sponsorship is going to get involved, so that way they can get cooler looking weapons, or like they can run faster or something like that. If anything, each one of these characters are also going to have necklaces on, weird, weird, like almost like ring looking necklaces on them. And they're just like, what is this? Each one of the characters is going to have a certain availability, and they have to decide by a certain amount of time, by the time that they get out of the safe zone, what their ability is. If anything, the best example that I can give for a lot of the things that I thought of is that, like, the champion that's been in this show for a couple of years now, or a couple of seasons now, his ability is to have like the animal ability, which means that he can talk to animals, and if anything, there's going to be like bigger animals that he needs to maybe even have like fights with, to get them as companions, to be on his side. But if anything, each one of these characters are going to have a small companion to follow them around, and that companion will be, they'll get a loading screen of what they can pick from, and if anything, like one of the companions that I thought about is for the recurring champion to have is a little champion that kind of looks like a dog, but then also like looks kind of like a dog slash like elf looking character, but he has to have like a big belly because he's been through the show for so long with this guy. So if anything, it's gonna be like a little cute little like Digimon kind of characters that go along with these characters as they try to go through their quests. But the little companions will get them like food and drinks and stuff like that, so that way they don't have to do the stupid day-to-day quests. But sometimes that'll, like, if they get like really good sponsors and stuff like that, that'll also come into a factor about whether or not the companion can do certain things for them. But the small companion won't be actually involved in fights. they will have like a no, they'll have like a no compete for the companions, where they can't, like, if the companion is being, they have like a friendly fire marker on them, where like a guy can't kill a companion, or a companion can't kill a person. If anything, if that person has a companion and the guy dies, it's just the companion just like fades away, and if anything, the items are added on to the person, like kind of like a keep what you kill kind of thing. But anyways, there's so much of this that could be like, there's so much information that I can give on here. Like one of the abilities that I want is for somebody to choose like a metal body of armor. There's some people that might pick lizard skin as their ability. There's some people that might pick being like the human bomb as a ability. But if anything, they're not going to use guns till way later on in the season. So if they make it up to the very end, like they'll get everything that they want to be able to go down to the last two. Because if anything, there has to be a natural progression through the season. You can't give them like machine guns right away. You got to give them like okay, well, try to use your ability and try to like craft things. And maybe one of the abilities for one of the characters will be able to able to craft things quickly, because that's always something that you need. But if anything, there are the necklaces will have cubes on the necklace, and like, well, why is it that we like? I remember the old seasons, but it's like, why is it that we have all these like, we have like one little dot and then some of the things that are empty? It's like, well, over the season, each one of these people have an ability, and when you kill another person in game, you gain that ability. So if anything, this game can start to be very strategic. Like if you're a person that wants a certain task and you want to kill somebody just for that task, like the more the merrier. If anything, once the season is over, you go back to just one ability, and so that gives a overall, like, everybody's even though the guy that's been through certain seasons has gained a lot of XP. Maybe the one ability that he has, he's worked a long time for to get certain achievements out of that one ability, and he realizes that because he built the damn thing, so he knows how to work the game well. And if anything, there's going to be some people, maybe the lizard skin guy, who is a kind of a CIA spook or some kind of marine military-esque guy that maybe the game developers don't know, but he's maybe trying to investigate what's going on with this whole thing. But maybe he got in for other means rather than just playing the game. He like wants to know what's going on and blah 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 blah, because he's a guy inside trying to investigate what's going on, and a lot of people don't know this. But I think eventually we'll get to that point where eventually he has to speak up and say, it's like, hey, I'm really so-and-so, and I'm trying to investigate what's going on. It's like, hey, don't kill me or something. But anyways, we get to where this guy that's been on this show for years, we have him as a team, and he at first is like maybe these people are fumbling and stumbling around and don't know how to do this game. So maybe he's like, maybe in some ways he's trying to like supposing maybe help them, but I think eventually he's probably gonna like be the one to help himself. Meaning that it's like, well, this is all inevitable. You don't get it. It's like, because if anything, maybe in the later seasons, we're just going to have it where like he does have teams, but then they abolish that concept and just go, okay, well, we're going to have this one guy, this guy that's been for more seasons, we're going to have him be like the target that two teams go up against, or just a free-for-all, and they all are trying to kill this guy. And then maybe once they finally do meet this guy and they try to go and kill him, he's just like, go ahead. And they're just like, oh, like you took the triumph of this whole thing. But anything, there's like I said, there's going to be a huge amount of sponsorship in mind. Like whenever they might go into like a bar or something to try and get something to drink, or the companion gives them like some kind of like bottle with some label. Whoever has to drink it or eat whatever it is, maybe in some kind of form of can or whatever, he has to like hold it up and then drink it, or hold the can like next to his face and then eat it. And they're just like, why are you doing that? And like, you'll realize that you have to do that. It's a sponsor. It's something that you'll get stuff for. So anytime that you have to have a pose before you can use some of this stuff, and maybe that'll come in a big factor into the game, because maybe someone will just refuse to do that kind of thing, or they'll refuse sponsorship, or they'll refuse, like, there's so many interesting aspects that like somebody might feel that they're too good at being a gamer, too petty to being having a sponsor or something like it. There's so many interesting roads we can go with this story, and it's just all about whether or not that people want to learn more. If anyways, it would be like, if anything, like I'm willing to see how many ways that somebody wants to translate this through a comic book or an anime show, or maybe a movie, or something. And I'll just have my name on it and be like, hey, I was the guy that created this. But like I said, I even have I will say, on another video that I did that was called Original Concepts, this video will probably be under that that album or that playlist. I already have concepts of how some of these characters should look like. If anything, I think the lizard-skinned guy should have kind of like a mohawk, and that should be green, and his body will be green, and maybe one of the characters calls him like a Christmas tree, or a tree or something, giving like an homage to the movie Running Man, which is kind of similar again to this. But anything, the thumbnail that I'll probably put on here is like a cover concept of what I want to put on, and I want to I guess I should probably say what that concept kind of means. If anything, I kind of wish that each one of these characters would have some kind of game logo on their body somehow. Like, you know how controllers have the X button, the square, the circle, and stuff like that? I really wish that they would have some kind of a medallion or Like if they like, I think all of them have to have a backpack to carry everything, and they'll have like a little circle that shows their emblem, and then that'll be something to hold their backpack on, and it'd just be an interesting way to go about doing this. To really say like, oh, these people are just like, they're controlling their fate, but their fate is not exactly maybe their own or something like that. Anyways, I don't know how much longer that this video is going to go for, but I'm just going to keep, I'm sure at some point this thing is going to stop, and I'm going to not be at a, so I'm just going to keep talking about this, and then this video will end. Anyways, the thumbnail that I'll put on here is something that I've that maybe like when it's put on there, it might not make sense, so I might have to like explain that. If anything, there's going to be a guy holding something in his hand, and if anything, this thing is going to be a really great way of how we can really change how stuff looks, and how like something as simple as like a diaper that maybe has some kind of whatever can be actually a grenade. Because this guy has been through and done every demo, every rough draft of everything, and he knows how to do hacks, he knows how to do mods, he knows how to do anything in this game. And because he knew that, like, because he was a game developer of this thing, and he was trying to get it out there, but ideally he had cheats in place and mods in place and stuff like that even the creators weren't aware of. And so if anything, he could mod stuff that doesn't look like how it should look, and he can make a grenade, he can that looks like a diaper, he can make outlandish looking weapons that might not make sense, but they work perfectly. Mod it in, because like, why not have a video game future concept that doesn't have stuff like cheats or mods or something, because everybody loves those. So anything, maybe he'll know like companion cheats and mods and stuff like that, and he'll be able to regale that to people that are on his team, and just be like, oh yeah, if you ever run hungry or something like that, just tell your companion to go into this lake or whatever, and this lake has infinite amount of fish or something like that. So like, that's the way that you'll always be fed and stuff like that. Always tell them to just go to this lake, and you'll get as much fish as you want, or something like that. But if you get a certain distance from your here's an impasse that I have, that is just kind of like I said, there's so many ways that you could get so many interesting things that you can do, but the biggest problem is like getting there, like getting to the point where these people have won and they're on their way to this gaming company, and the gaming company is giving them these contracts, and like, it's all about like, we can do so much cool stuff, but it's just like, how much time is it going to take to get there? But anyways, I hope that, like I said, somebody's interested in doing something with this, because it's just sitting in my mind. And like I said, I can have, like, I'm pretty decent at drawing, so I can come up with some kinds of concepts to get further along in the story. Like, eventually, like I said, I think we're gonna get these people into groups first, and a group always has a leader. And then after that, it's going to be a free-for-all for anybody to kill anybody. And I think, like I said, like this guy who's been champion for a couple seasons, like, well, maybe you should have this ability, maybe you should have that ability. He's tailor-making, helping these people. Then he's also thinking about himself in future play, because he knows that somebody has to die. So once we get to the free-for-all thing, maybe if the guy that's been champion a couple seasons, he right away kills off maybe some of his own team members, and one of his other team members was like, why did you do this? Like, I'm like, and he's just like, they are not our friends. It's like, I told you in the beginning of this, eventually they are not our friends. And maybe his team doesn't have friendly fire on, and maybe he puts some mod on where he kills his own team members, and they're just like, why did you do this? It's like they were irrelevant. And then he just goes off and he just like starts wreaking havoc, and they're just like, oh my god, it's like was this guy trying to using us this whole time? And maybe he'll like make them understand where it's just like, hey, this was like a mercy killing. Like, if anything, maybe like there's maybe sometimes where there's only 2 people left, and they shoot people with adrenaline and all kinds of drugs and all kinds of stuff to get the season over, because maybe they're just like, I don't want to end this or whatever. And maybe they're at a stalemate between these 2 characters, so they shoot them up with all kinds of stuff and threaten them and all these things to make them finish this season. And that's something that you don't see on the show. And like, if anything, it's just like, this was a mercy killing. This is like, you don't realize like how evil that you will become throughout this show. You don't get it. And if anything, like this will become something that it doesn't always have to look the exact same every season. You'll get more and more interesting people for each season, because you have to kill off a whole bunch of characters, but then you have to reintroduce new characters. And like I said, this would be perfect for a comic book, because a comic book, the chains will be taken off, and you can go 100 different ways. And if anything, the new characters that will be introduced in seasons will maybe be like so dumb that they maybe think that stuff like wearing scantily clad clothing, well, yeah, they'll get them sponsorship, but it's like, well, you were stupid because you don't have a lot of armor now. And blam goes you're dead because you made that mistake. But yeah, but it's like, there's, like I said, there's so many avenues that you can go with this. And if anything, maybe something that I didn't mention is this might look like Iron Man 2, meaning when you put these people in their tubes and you put them into the game, it looks very Iron Man-esque, where you see Iron Man inside of his armor, you see these people inside of the game, but you get them to maybe mimic what's going on in the game world. They're mimicking in this shell of whatever the game is, and you'll see that they'll see like sponsorship reports and bet reports, and then they'll see what the game is going on. But if anything, they'll still be visually seeing this world but then they'll also be seeing whatever their mind is showing them. So like they'll be interesting to mimic what's going on in the game via the shell of the person, or the shell of whatever this big black room will look like. But anyways, I think I might have to wrap this up soon. So if anything, there's probably so much more that I can maybe talk about or something. I really even haven't gotten into like how like some of the characters will really look. But if anything, I think I do still have like some concepts and stuff like that. And if anything, if people are interested in doing something with this, then I would gladly come up with how somebody will look, or how the visuals of this thing will look. More than likely, the first setting will be in like some kind of wood setting, but eventually, the more on you go to the game, the more lands will be open, and maybe you'll get like some kind of skyscraper-looking city, or something that might look like a medieval, like Skyrim kind of city or something like that. But eventually, the more they progress, the more stuff they can progress to get better things, armor or whatever. And it'll even be interesting to do like some kind of like them bargaining for things, and using sponsorship to get better equipment and stuff like that. And but ideally, I hope that like somebody really does like view this and just be like, oh man, this is a really cool like concept, and like I hope that just something comes from this, just because like I think I have so much in my mind. I think I have so much in my mind that I can make a story from, and ideally I might have to end this here. So if anything, as always, good luck and good night, even though it's morning right now. But if anything, I have to stop this here. Hopefully this editing goes well, and goodbye. Thank you.